Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most. I hope you want to hear about the nostalgia for old commercials. I hope you want a conversation that involves Indiana Jones and maybe even a little bit about Ben Folds, because we've got all of those in today's episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Okay, Tucker, I was having a conversation the other day with someone about physical media, okay, something I know you really love.
Yes, I do.
And we were talking about how CDs like had this really, really long lifetime when compared to other things. I said, I don't think that that's true, actually.
What do you mean, like?
So they were saying, well, CDs were around forever, right? Like they get introduced in the late 80s. They're, it's the standard through the early 2000s. And I'm like, vinyl records were the standard for like 5 decades.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
At this point, digital in any format, MP3, et cetera, has been the standard now for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And I am a firm believer in that CDs are great. Don't get me wrong. I love my CD collection. There's a reason I still have it. But it is a flawed piece of physical media in the fact that, like, I know that they're talking about like the cheaply made ones, the glue on it, the same way laser discs have glue rot and the layers of that. You can scratch it. A single scratch will completely take it away. There's no way to get back from it.
Not necessarily.
I mean, if you grind it down, but have you ever had to grind down like a CD or a DVD?
Well, actually, that was one of the early selling points of CDs, was the fact that they were not that they were scratch resistant, but that a lot of CD players had the ability to fill in that gap for you, so that a scratch on an old vinyl record would actually mean the thing was broken. Like there's just no way to fix it. But CD players, certain scratches could be gotten through you. Just, of course, it depends on how deep the scratch is. But I mean, I've seen people's CD. Okay, remember the days of the CD wallet in your car?
Yeah, I had the visor one.
And then someone probably had like a top loading, like clamshell CD player that had
like the 6-discer that was underneath the
no.
seat?
I mean, a single disc, like one that you could walk around with headphones on.
Oh, okay.
But it would be mounted by like the shifting stick, the gear, whatever. I don't know why I can't think of it. But, and then it would have an audio out into a tape cassette adapter that would go into that. And I saw people who just had CDs floating around in their car. They were scratched to shit. And even with their car bouncing up and down, it could still play through all the scratches.
Isn't it amazing how the tape deck becomes it is the signal that your car is dying a death, right? If you have a tape deck, at one point they are like, we're going to stop putting tape decks in cars. And then iPod owners at that point were like, no. I still use the tape deck adapter to play my iPod.
Yeah, well, and let's call out the fact that you didn't mention 8-track or audio cassette tapes.
Yes, correct.
Right? I remember, so before I fell in love with video, I fell in love with audio production, essentially, in that when I figured out, I was like 5 years old, and I figured out that the radio I had in my bedroom, you could record the radio and your voice on it with just blank audio cassettes. And so I was constantly using it and trying to make stuff. And I was obsessed with audio cassette tapes. And I remember like listening to my audio cassette tape of The Lion King over and over and over again. And so that's actually one of the things that I look at when I'm out at thrift shops, or their audio cassette rack, but there's pretty much nothing. I mean, it's basically Christmas stuff, religious, Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
Maybe some inspirational tapes that came like in a little clamshell.
Yep. You Need to Be You, part 7, right?
So there's a world where I think someone is cataloging all of the stuff they can, just taking every audio tape they can find and putting it up, because I noticed that was a thing on YouTube for a while.
Like digitizing it?
Digitizing. People would go to a thrift store, a garage sale, and they would buy old home videotapes and just put whatever on the internet. I've got a great story about that, actually, which is my sister and Rachel, who's been on our podcast, went to a fight club.
That's right.
In the early 2000s. And somebody was videotaping. We're talking hundreds of kids were at this fight club.
I know I won't find it, but I'm going to search Fargo Fight Club.
I know.
Just in the off chance that suddenly it's been posted.
What's bizarre is someone bought this like videotape, this camera and tapes in Colorado. And so it wasn't someone connected to Fargo. And somehow our friend Rachel found it, and she sent me a copy, and she sent my sister a copy. And it was the first time my sister had ever kind of been put on the internet, and she was unhappy about it. She did not like that idea one bit. But
well, I actually have a YouTube channel that does exactly that.
Yeah.
It's called Rewritten by Machine. And what I'm doing, though, is I'm not putting up people's home videos, because I think that would be like, oh, this is a family's vacation. Well, that's a huge breach of privacy. They probably didn't mean for that tape to get out into the wild. I've only ever found one tape like that anyways. But what I do digitize is really it's video ephemera. It's video. When VHS was invented, it suddenly made video production accessible to a vast range of budgets. So there's an explosion of people making VHS tapes all the time. And these tapes are all in thrift shops now. That's the only place you're pretty much going to find them. Maybe estate sales. You're not going to really find them at pawn shops really anymore. And I mean, these were things that they're like videos that are almost liminal spaces in and of themselves, and that they were only intended to really serve a need for a short period of time. And very few people, if anyone, would really care about them anymore. But they are a recording of the past, right? These are people who are in these things. And so people like me who are really sort of obsessed with media, and for whatever reason, I latched onto media when I was a little kid as like a thing I wanted to do. It's so fun to find these things and then digitize it and put it on YouTube so that it's like, hey, at least there's a copy somewhere, right? And then it's kind of surprising what things will suddenly get views. Like I found a tape called Babe Winkleman's Fishing Tips. Babe Winkleman was a guy who had actually he still produces on YouTube to this day, but he was making fishing videos and outdoorsman videos and had an underground following of like dads who wanted to be outdoorsmen across the country who would watch his stuff.
Sure.
So I found a Babe Winkleman tape, like it was Fish in the Freeze, something like it was ice fishing. And it's got like cooking tips from Babe Winkleman's wife, like, and now, to Betty. And then you would cut to the kitchen and she'd be like, now we're going to fry up some panfish today in this new batter that I've made. And I put that up, and within like 3 days it had like 300 views. And other ones will be like, this is an Oprah Winfrey special that doesn't exist anywhere else on the internet, but here, and it's got 7 views, right? I also will do the thing I love, though, even more than that, are TV tapes, right? Where someone put a tape in and recorded 12 hours of ABC that day. And the reason I love that is the real sort of time capsule are the commercial breaks.
Oh, yeah.
They are incredible time capsules of ephemeral video. It was only meant to serve a single purpose at that moment. It's not going to be in a movie theater ever. There's not a box set of Campbell soup commercials out there for you to buy. It really was just to sell a product. But people got together and made that thing on a certain day, and there are memories wrapped up in it. And it also speaks to the style of the time, like how they advertise. It's fascinating to look at ads from the dawn of television through today and see how they've changed over time. watching ads from like 1993 is pretty wild. The cars they're selling, the food they're selling, the clothing they're selling,
how they're talking to kids, how they're talking to adults.
Right. And you can tell usually within a second or two, like, oh, this is a tampon commercial. It's a bunch of, late 20-somethings women sitting in like a brightly lit coffee shop, and they're all kind of talking, right? And it's just back and forth, and it's, oh, this is a tampon commercial. Got it.
The thing that I love the most about old commercials, and by the way, my sister-in-law also is into this because she helps people transfer tapes, and so every now and then she'll find like an old. She found an old KFGO commercial voiced by Andy Rooney.
That's some of the best stuff. Is finding local stuff. When I found the official tape of the 1991 Norse Kustfest, that was incredible because that's got interviews with Johnny Cash and like Bill Cosby performed that year and all this other stuff. Like it's pretty wild.
Part of my day job is going to Norse Kustfest, and we interview the people who are there. And
when is it? Like when?
It's the last full weekend of September, I think. And so it starts on a Wednesday and it goes through Sunday. But like Jay Leno's performing at 1 o'clock in the afternoon this year. Right. And, they usually have some classic country acts and stuff. I mean, there's some big names that come through Norse Kustfest. Yeah. And also all the glug that you can drink, all the rumagrat you can put down your gullet. One of my favorite kind of time capsules of commercials is the Ben Stiller Show. Oh. And so the Ben Stiller Show is 1 season long, and it's amazing because it's Ben Stiller, Bob Odenkirk, Janine Garofalo. The writers on it are like Conan O'Brien. Like it is insane.
I have it on DVD.
Right?
Yep.
They do a commercial parody of a dandruff commercial that's so good where Bob Odenkirk notices Janine Garofalo across the like farmer's market, and Ben Stiller is acting like he's in a commercial, and he's like, I see you notice that girl, but you've got dandruff, and the way he and like little things like he shoots, he scores.
Is he like popping in and out of the frame and stuff?
and like throwing like celery in the air, and he goes, "It's my friend. I just hate him so much." And it's true because the way they speak in commercials is no way even close to the way you'd speak in real life. Yeah. And they're like, this is how we like get into the mind of the people is by showing them we're just like them. Did you notice that like in the 90s, every kid like commercial for kids for some reason had electricity in it for some reason, or it was in a fisheye lens?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's almost always a wide angle lens,
right? Just
to accentuate, especially if it's an adult, like an adults just don't understand.
Yeah, it's an old marm teacher like pointing down at you with glasses and gray hair, and then the look of the kid looking up. Duh.
Yeah, and then they all crack into some high C. And then it's suddenly there's a race car loop and they're running their fucking cars on it. Going radical.
I loved there were certain ad series that I just could not get enough of, and like. High C for a long time had some of the best stuff. Sunny Delight, another great ad set. OK Soda, for its brief time, had some of the best commercials. I remember one specifically that was a QR code, not a QR code, but like a barcode.
Yep.
And it didn't have any words or anything, but at the bottom of it, it had a little feed that said, "We know some of you have the scanners that can read this. If you scan this, the real commercial, information will be there." And so the idea was that you'd if you worked at a grocery store, you're supposed to scan it.
Oh.
But I don't know if it actually scanned.
Sure.
And then at the end, it was like, "OK Soda available now."
Yeah,
that's genius.
I loved the graphic design of OK Soda. As a kid, it's comic booky, right? So I was drawn to it the entire time. No, yeah, those commercials are wild. Finding local stuff like your sister-in-law has found. I mean, that is the best stuff. One of my favorite ones is a Tai Chi instructional video that was shot in Island Park in 1991.
Oh.
And so it's just this lady standing in the gazebo and going through this whole like Tai Chi system with music and they had whoever had produced it for her had put like titles on top of it. And it turns out she's the ex-wife of Rezel's stepdad.
Oh.
And I didn't know that until I posted it. And someone was like, hey, isn't this Rezel's stepdad's ex-wife? He still teaches Tai Chi with her, I think.
We did an improv show years ago for PBS was doing some kind of deal, or it was like a reading conference, something like that. But PBS had a big booth outside of the convention room we were performing in. And afterwards, the woman who booked us came up. That was so good. That was so much fun. We loved it. We'd like to offer you guys some gift bags. And so they offered us, they were grocery store bags, but they were filled with VHS tapes of programming that they clearly were like giving out to try and maybe woo people into carrying some of it. And nobody wanted theirs. So there were 6 of these bags in the back of my car. And it was like how to build your own wood duck. And so like carving like wood ducks.
That's the good stuff.
And so we had so many of those that they became pub quiz prizes when I was doing the Gastro pub quiz. And people would get pissed because I'd be like, all right, and we got a special mystery tape here. And they'd be like, I've already got the wood duck one. I need the one on setting up like a computer monitor. And because they wanted the whole collection of the stuff that we had. And it is interesting to me. Even have you stumbled upon any of the old like telethon stuff, like the PBS, like those things are really great because you see the much younger versions of people in our community.
Yeah, I have stumbled upon a couple of like PBS locally produced documentaries, but almost all of them were already digitized and online somewhere, so that it didn't make sense for me to go ahead and do it. So no, I haven't. But I have not found any telethon stuff. That would be wild because I remember my dad participating in one of the PBS telethons in town and seeing him in like the live TV feed. Like they even came up and talked to him at one point. And so like having a copy of that would be amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure we recorded it at that time, but that would have been 91 maybe. And so that doesn't exist anymore. You know, there's a piece of media. I have no idea if it exists, but it is my personal holy grail. And I've got some time in my hands now. Maybe I should be
seek it out,
trying to seek it out. So years ago, I think 2003, so 20 years ago, we had the McDonald family reunion. And this is where McDonald's from all over the area, who I don't know, right, got together.
Not related to the restaurant, related to this is the family. This is Tucker's mom's side of the family.
Exactly, yeah. And they had put together a big booklet of the McDonald family as of that time, of who all was there. And so each like branch of the family got its own little section, and our family got a section, which is sort of like my grandfather, John McDonald, right? It's like his family is there. Grandpa was a lifelong Democrat and educator and was fairly active within those areas politically. And there was a photograph of him at, I think, the North Dakota DNC or Democratic Convention. I think it was just the North Dakota one. As the representative of the version of a teachers union that they had at that time. And it's a young photo of him. I mean, this would have been 50s. And he is holding a microphone and he's standing in front of a camera and he's talking. And you have no way of knowing, was this the local news that was filming him? Was this the Democratic Convention that was filming him? Was this Fargo Public Schools that was filming him? What is it? But if this footage exists anywhere, it's of my grandfather, young and handsome and fresh looking directly into a camera, talking into a microphone, right? On film, more than likely. So like that is something that I've always wanted to try and do the detective work and track down if it exists. Chances are it doesn't. Chances are it hasn't existed for decades, right? Because it looks like it was recorded at a time where I'm sure they were just, if they were even using any form of tape at that moment, which I don't think they would have been at whatever year this was, they would have been re-recording over stuff. They would have been throwing film out. So really what it might be is that if that footage ever got archived and put into something else at some point, right? Or if it exists in any archive somewhere, I want to get a hold of that. If I can get a hold of a film print itself, that's the ultimate, because then I can get it digitally. I'm sorry, I'm going on about it.
No, yeah. I mean,
that is my holy grail, and it more than likely doesn't exist, but I can't imagine being happier than if I were to find that footage.
I had all of this 8mm footage that my grandfather must have been a huge like early adopter when it came to like home movies and stuff like that.
So like you got his snuff films?
Yeah, exactly, right. And there's a lot of the usual stuff where it's kind of like the burnout that you kind of get because the light's too intense in certain moments. But a lot of people, like looking at the camera and just waving erratically or like pretending to pick their nose.
It was new to them at the time.
Right. It noveled in the fact that like you can't see it right away, right? You'd have to send it off and process it. But I had it all digitized and I was looking at a portion of it, and Jill walked into the living room and it was someone taping from inside the boat of my grandfather skiing behind the boat. And then he drops a ski and he goes slalom on it. And Jill's like, ooh, the lady left 2 tickets to the gun show. Who's this smoke show? Like, break me off a piece. And I'm like, that's my grandfather. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And we forget sometimes that previous generations were young once, right? And that's something that you need to remember, that they led lives, that they were being recorded for posterity in some way, shape, or form because they're a part of the Democratic Convention, because they, were a great behind the boat skier. And those are the things that are really important. And I urge people out there, if you have home videos, now's the time to get that turned into a digital source, because you are one flooding of your basement. You're one, someone accidentally put this in an area that got too hot away from not being able to have those things. And like this, what's neat is this 8mm stuff. I found a VHS cassette dub of it that must have been done like in the early 2000s, but it was horrible.
Sure.
And so I knew that I could send it off and someone do essentially like a scan of the entire thing. And it's much crisper and much nicer. And so if you've got those, if you've got a giant box of those things, now's the time. In fact, Kodak makes it so easy right now. Kodak sends you a box and whatever you can fit in the box, they will digitize for you. And you can send all formats. And if it's something that's got a magnetic sound strip on it, they'll be able to, put it into sound. And what's great is they'll send you back like a thumb drive with it. Plus they'll send you, they'll put it into a Dropbox folder or whatever it is. And then that's so easy to share with other people so that you can let the whole family see it. And I think it's very interesting. This last week, my aunt had sent an email saying, I have 9 copies of this photo. Who wants it? And it's a family photo taken after my grandfather's funeral. We all went out and had like a big family dinner afterwards. And so it's everybody that you can imagine. And it's been, I can't even remember. My grandpa maybe died in 2009, 2010, something around there. And so, it's a ways old where the little kids in it are now graduating from high school. And it's interesting because nobody jumped on it. No one was like, oh, I'd love a copy of that. Give it to me right now.
Yeah, that's making me think. I know of one family photo that I know does no longer exists because the moment we took it, we got rid of it immediately, which was at my grandmother's funeral. Grandma McDonald. So not Mama Luke, Grandma McDonald. So my grandfather was still alive, just barely, but he was alive. And he was in deep mourning over the loss of my grandmother. And, we're at the wake and he's in a wheelchair at this point. And he tells his kids, my mom has 8 brothers and sisters, right? It's 9 adults. He tells them all, let's take a family photo with mom. And so my grandmother's laying there in the open casket and you can see all of them like, and so, I can't remember if I'm the one who took the photo or not. I don't remember. I was on someone else's phone, but we took this photo of them with my dead grandmother, and then we deleted it right away because it was like, Grandpa wants to do this. We're not going to tell him no right now, but this is not a photo. We don't want a photo of dead grandma.
Photos are interesting. So a previous guest on JJ Meets World, and I won't say their name, came to my sister's wedding and brought their partner at the time. And their partner, it seems, had planned on breaking up with this person. And so
This is
after
to your sister's wedding?
This is my sister's wedding, which was in Jamaica, mind you.
Yep.
And so then it was, don't worry. I tried to hide in a lot of the photos so no one would see me, because that's like, you are now immortalized in this photo. And I remember taking a photo at Jill's grandmother's funeral, not in front of the casket, but outside, because it's the first time that the huge family had gotten together. And I was volunteering. I was like, I will take the photo. And they're like, no, JJ, you got to be in the photo. And it's not that I was thinking about breaking up with Jill or anything like that, but I thought, what happens if it doesn't work out between us? Yeah. And now I am in, and I towered, like, they're all tiny Nebraskan people. Mm-hmm. I'm easily like 8 inches taller than the tallest person there. Mm-hmm. Just tower. So it's like, it's 30 people and me right in the middle. And I had that thought of, well, what happens if things don't work out and then I'm there? Now, luckily, with Photoshop nowadays, it's no sweat, because you just scan that in and click around me and push content aware, and boom, all of a sudden I become a shrub.
Shorten you?
Yeah, no.
That's that content removal?
Fill content aware, and then like it's like, oh, it copied the church bricks perfectly. But I do think to myself, those photos that are out there that I'm a part of, I also am really weirded out by the photos I'm a part of that I don't know I'm a part of. So sure. I'm sitting eating a churro at Disneyland on a family vacation.
Right.
And you can see me clearly, like I kind of like look at the camera a little bit, but the Thompsons are taking their family photo on their family trip.
Or then there's, of course, the photo, that infamous photo of you at the Dave Matthews Band concert.
I was just going to bring that up. It was 9 years ago that I saw Dave Matthews Band in Saratoga, New York. And so Dave turns away from the crowd and is like on his guitar, and they take a photo. And the next day, that photo's on the cover of DaveMatthewsBand.com, because they're like, hey, we had a great time in Saratoga. Can't wait to do it again tonight. And you can see me. I'm not clear.
Well,
you have to look at and be like, oh, yeah, that definitely could be JJ.
Yeah, it is a smudge, but it's definitely a JJ shaped smudge.
Right.
For sure.
And what's funny is when
Special thanks to this guy in row 12.
Thanks for being here and rocking out. And that was the pit, baby. I was in the pit.
Wow.
So what's interesting about that night that you need to know is this. Number one, Saratoga, New York, beautiful place. It's where they do one of the big horse races every year. Like, so Saratoga Springs is one of the big racetracks. And so I went out there with Phil Lund, and he got us like this amazing penthouse suite at this brand new hotel that had just opened. It was 2 floors. We opened all the doors, and then there's a torrential rain downpour while we were gone, and we flooded both floors of this thing, like flooded.
Oh my God.
Like an inch of water everywhere. And we were like, oh shit. Not only that, but like we got caught running home in this downpour, and I thought it was going to ruin my phone. We were so soaked that when we walked in, it looked like we had just jumped in the lake. We were just sopping then. And so that night we go to the show, and the first night we had picked tickets. The second night we were in like this private booth, but with other people. And what I love about this is I'm featured on the front of the Dave Matthews Band website, and Phil Lund is not there. Why is that? Because he decided to go get some beer. And so when he went to get the beer was the moment that we were there, and we were like, Dave. It was great. You know, I'll say this about Dave Matthews.
It's just a sea of clamshell necklaces in that.
Oh, photo. Yeah. Oh, that was great. Everyone smelled so good because they smelled like whatever Axe body spray they had put on right before they got there. Tons of kids were being
They were
conceived.
like, hey, check out this new ringtone I just bought.
Yeah, check it out. Or what about this? Be like, this is my 25th Dave show. Oh, yeah, this is my 50th Dave show. I've seen Dave every time this year. He hasn't played Gray Street yet this season, though. So when I ragged on Dave Matthews for a long time, I thought he sounded like garbage, and I was like, "This is just the worst."
You had the experience,
right?
So, yeah.
And that's the thing is, I can't tell you. Like, I could never sit and listen to a whole Dave Matthews Band CD, but I can definitely listen to like a live concert, and I will go and have the experience. And the nachos are always really good.
Yeah.
There's one time where the Tim Reynolds is one of the the bass guitarist for Dave Matthews Band. And Phil was positive that Tim Reynolds was standing in front of him when he got beer, so much that Phil wanted to take a picture. And I'm pretty sure he took a picture with just a dude who dressed up like Tim Reynolds. Because why would he wait in the line for beer?
Yeah.
Just doesn't make sense. I'm very excited because I'm going to go to a couple concerts this summer, and live music is definitely is definitely ready to make its comeback post COVID. I think we've kind of been sleeping on it a little bit, and people have gone to a couple shows, but this summer it seems like it's wall to wall. There's concerts all the time. I know you're pretty stoked for the first weekend in July.
Yes, sir. My first time watching Ben Folds ever live.
You're so excited.
I'm so pumped.
I've got my tickets hanging on my refrigerator door.
Nice.
I'm pumped about that. And I think that there's an era right now where Ben Folds, his fans are turning this like age where they're like, yeah, we want to go see your show. We want to go. And if you started at 7, that's cool. You don't have to start at 9.
Yeah. If we're all home at a decent hour, that works really great too, for sure. I mean, because I fell in love with him over 20 years ago, probably 24, 25 years ago. Is when I discovered his music through Tim Larson and just absolutely went gaga for it.
What if you had to pick 3 Ben Folds tracks that you think are not necessarily the best or your favorite, but the ones that you're like, these are ones that if someone said they've never heard Ben Folds, I'd like them to listen to?
Oh boy. Well, I'm gonna go. It's gonna be both from Whatever Never Amen and from Unauthorized Biography of Reinhold Messner. It's gonna be those. The classic is Brick, right?
Yep.
That was the crossover hit. That was the big radio hit. And so if I'm trying to get someone introduced to it first, the one that had the most popularity probably makes a ton of sense. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. So if I'm going to throw Brick at them, which is a slow one, then I'm probably going to throw Stephen's Last Night in Town, which is also from Whatever Never Amen, just because it's an upbeat one. And then it's tough with Unauthorized Biography because that is a masterpiece from start to finish. But I'm doing track 4, Magic, which was actually written by their drummer, Darren Jesse, for his like side project band at the time. And they made a recording of it for the 5. And that is one that actually now gets done by show choirs and jazz choirs and stuff in high schools and colleges across the country. There's all these really beautiful arrangements of that song. So I would suggest listening to, track 4 from Unauthorized. That's one of those like just ultra melodic, beautiful ones that's going to take you away. I wish I didn't have to stop at 3 because I could keep going. Because I'd probably throw in something from Naked Baby Photos.
I was going to say, now I'll tell you my 3.
Sure.
But I am not nearly the fan that you are. But I will tell you the things that I enjoy that I think would be good on this list for someone who's experiencing Ben. And we call him just Ben, like when you're a Dave fan. Like,
yeah. Oh, I want to swap out one of mine now, but you keep going.
Okay, so I also start with Brick, right? Yeah. Because I think that it's the easiest spoon fed to be like, yep, this is what you're getting to. And then it goes to Rock in the Suburbs. For me.
Sure.
And
yeah, I stuck with just Ben Folds 5. I didn't go into his solo
I know, stuff, right? And then Tom and Mary.
Oh, beautiful.
And the thing I like about Tom and Mary is he attacks the piano in it. There's parts where he just goes gung, gung, and it's almost like he's mad at it and he wants to like.
That's very much, I think, the thing that differentiates him from other pianists like Billy Joel, even though Billy Joel will slams too, but Ben Folds really treats the piano like a drum kit. And he gets so much, he has this, it's something along the lines too of how, when they were in, Chapel Hill recording as a band for the first time, he was known for like putting thumbtacks on the hammers inside the piano to get it a rawer sound or make it sound more metallic or hardcore if you ever needed to. They would also just record by just throwing a couple microphones in a living room, and they would just record there in the living room. I think if I were to swap one out though, I might swap out Stephen's Last Night in Town with something from what's it called? Well, they have a compilation album of sort of like B-sides or other things called Naked Baby Photos that got released between Whatever Never Amen and Unauthorized. And there's a track on there called For Those of Y'all Who Are Fanny Packs. And For Those of Y'all Who Are Fanny Packs isn't an actual song. It was the three of them fucking around while the engineers were were trying to get everything set up, and they were kind of getting bored. And so it's them literally just like being dipshits on their instruments. And it's mostly Darren Jesse in the background, their drummer, who's like fucking with them. And it's insane. And it's the one thing that I don't think he's ever, from what I've been able to see, he probably has. I've never seen him in videos or them in videos do a live rendition of For Those of You Who Are Fanny Packs, because that would be an improv. They would have to improvise something, which he does all the time in his solo concerts. He'll write a song right there. Probably the most famous one is Rock This Bitch, which came from some concert he was doing when he was, I think, touring Rockin' the Suburbs. And he's like between songs and he's playing to like college crowds. And someone starts screaming from the back of the crowd, like, rock this bitch, rock this bitch. It's clearly some drunk. And Ben goes, rock this bitch. And then he writes a song called Rock This Bitch right there. And then he started doing variations of it in different places he went until he ends up doing a concert with the Western Australian Symphony Orchestra.
I was going to say, okay, so like that's the one that I've heard of this.
Yep. And so then he does one with them too. And so he's been improvising variations of that. So he does that all the time. So I'm hoping we're going to see some kind of improv like that at this show coming up here in July.
When I saw him at, what was the venue name that was Playmakers, and then was it just called The Venue?
The Venue.
When I saw him at the Venue, he did some of that. And it's sort of like he gets like 3 songs out of the way and he kind of then does some crowd work, and then he goes in and he, kind of vamps a little bit with it. And there's nothing better for me than watching an artist who is not laid down to just a set list, right? So, for example, I saw Paul Simon and Sting years ago at Madison Square Garden. Amazing show. But you know what? It was the exact same show that they had done the night before and the night before that. The set list does not vary one iota. And not that every single show needs to be completely personalized, but it's nice if you get something that's a little different. I saw Weird Al Yankovic at the Fargo Theater, and he did the largest ball of twine in Minnesota. And he, it's a long, rambly song. And at one point it rolled all the way to, like if you unrolled it, it would go all the way to Moorhead, Minnesota. And he stopped singing and let everyone fill in that like gap, like sang it themselves. And I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. And sometimes you can tell that, listen, we've fully produced this. There's pyrotechnics, there's lights, there's a video element. Like you're locked into more or less a musical that we've put together, which is also fine because they put a lot of effort into that.
Yeah.
Would you, if someone handed you a ticket to a Taylor Swift concert, would you go to it?
Yeah. Yeah. If it's a free ticket, absolutely. I'll go to pretty much just about any concert for free.
Now I could maybe identify 2 Taylor Swift songs. I'm not a Swiftie myself.
I couldn't name a single one. Shake It Off, right? No.
I don't know. Is it? Shake It Off. Shake it off.
I don't know. Is that Taylor Swift?
Off. I don't know.
Well, what was the one? Oh, Trouble was the one where the goat got added in. So I guess I do know a couple of Taylor Swift songs.
Yeah, a couple things.
Trouble.
I want to go because right now Taylor Swift is having a moment that is very Beatles-like, right? Thousands of people are swarming outside of the stadium just to be able to hear like maybe what's going on inside.
Swifties are nuts, dude.
They are nuts. And so to me, I want to be a part of that energy. I want to hear what it's like to be, to have people who are so engaged. The people who are waiting for the doors to open and sobbing because of the experience they're about to have.
Yeah. Swifties are fucking nuts, dude.
They are.
They really are. In a good way, Swifties. Mm-hmm. I bet not enough listen to JJ Meets World.
I went to a Tom Jones concert. I mean, it's over 10 years now, probably like closer to 15. But women still threw their underpants on the stage.
Good for that guy.
And I'm like, way to go, Sir Tom Jones, who also is very, very Christian right now. He does a lot of like hymns and stuff like that. And still these ladies are like,
gotta get those Christian panties.
Yeah, here's a pair of Victoria's Secret. Bling. And I'm sure that they've changed in size and the amount of cotton that's in them over the years, but like it's still got to feel good.
Well, it's more or less, I think some women are probably just bringing a pair in their purse for this purpose.
Yeah, they're like, I can't get rid of my real underpants.
I need those.
I need them for underpants purposes.
I've had them since 1975.
What's your oldest pair of underpants?
I mean, maybe 2 years. Right
Really?
now. Yeah. I mean,
Did you do like a culling where you're like, I'm going to get rid of all my undies?
I'm gonna revise it. I think it's only a year. Yeah. I
What?
did. Yeah. Well, I mean, I buy in bulk on Amazon. And so, I shouldn't say in bulk. It's not like I'm buying a shit ton. I'm just buying
like a 3-pack.
No, I'm buying like 20.
Oh,
right?
wow. Oh,
I bought like 20 because I was going to refresh all my undies. And so I bought 20 new boxer briefs, got rid of all the older stuff. And while I do donate clothing, I don't donate underwear.
Yeah, it's a good
weird.
move.
I think it's weird.
They deserve new underwear.
They
People
do.
like who are needing it.
And so yeah, and they're all like they're all black, and they're nice and like kind of cottony, and they feel nice. They're not crazy. And they're just like, it's like uniforms. Like, great, that's my underwear. And they're right there. And then once these start to pill a little too much, or start to get holes, when they get holes, I throw them out. It's not like I was when I was a teenager where it's like, it's still good. It's like, no, buddy, get rid of it.
I got some fabric between my genitals and my pants.
I mean, now I get one little hole in a sock and that sock is gone.
Me too.
Right? And so I do the same thing with socks. It's like, okay, I've got a pile of black socks, a pile of white socks with gray heels, and then my black underwear. And it's like, simple. This is all I ever need, right? And the black socks are the ones I'm almost always wearing anyways. They're just regular little ankle socks. So it's better that way.
I was a boxer briefs guy forever, right?
You're not anymore though.
I'm not. I was a boxer, a boxer shorts kind of guy for a long time. And during Santaland Diaries, I switched over to boxer briefs because I needed to be held in a little bit.
Yeah.
And like I needed my butt to be a little, like more contoured during that. And I will never go back. But I do have a pair of Lucky underpants that my wife insists that I throw away, but I'm not ready yet.
But there's somewhere where she can see them.
Yeah. Like
So
when
you
she
still
opens the
wear
drawer,
them?
I can't. And here's why. They're Jetson, like, so it's got the cast of the Jetsons on them, and they're baby blue, and the elastic is pretty much it's blown out. If I had to like use a term, the elastic completely blown out, and I can't think of a medical term for it, so I'll just say the taint is completely worn away. Completely worn away.
Yeah, that's the thing that covers your fleshy fun bridge.
Right, correct. Yeah. Thank you. That's much classier than what I said.
I believe that's the medical term.
That's what my doctor says, at least. So to me, I was like, but I love these underpants so much. And so at one point I entertained the idea of like, well, you know what? I have a t-shirt quilt. Maybe I should turn these into like a throw pillow or something. And my wife was like, you are not going to turn a pair of underpants.
Do a
throw pillow. She's like, at no point do I want someone sitting down being like, what an interesting pillow, and be like, yes, my husband has worn those as underpants over 1,000 times.
How big are these too? Like to be a fucking throw pillow.
Well, I mean, you'd have to rip the seam and like do some work.
You'd have to spatchcock them so that they
right.
open up all the way.
Yeah.
So it's really just one side of the pillow.
You're already having to like take around like the taintish area. And then I thought, wouldn't it be funny because like the front of the pillow could have the fly still in it?
It's too bad that she doesn't listen to this podcast, because Jill, if you were listening, this would be a great present for JJ. Would be to get him a new pair of Jetsons underpants.
I've looked. Here's the problem. How did I wait this long to tell you about my new project that I'm so excited about? I love dressing up for the 4th of July.
Okay.
And choosing what my 4th of July look is going to be. For example, 2015 JJ was amazing because I had a pair of like swim trunks that had little crabs all over them. And then I had this awesome tank top that had a shark on it. Like that was kind of like bursting up. It looked like it was going to bite me. And then I had this really awesome, like, I call it a Batista hat, but it's only because the character of Angel Batista in Dexter always wore them. But like, I'm sure they've got a different term. They look like they're woven and they got a little fabric band around them. And it's what Don Draper would wear if he went to the beach.
Okay.
So I've always liked it. But the holy grail to me has been to have the coat that Mayor Vaughn wears in Jaws when he reopens the beaches on the 4th of July on Amity Island.
I'm going to look this up. I'm trying to picture it.
And so it's a gray blazer.
Mayor Vaughn,
Jaws. There's a whole subreddits dedicated to this coat. And it's gray. It's got these large lapels and it's got white anchors on it. And it is absolutely, it's a good looking coat,
That
right?
is a nice looking coat.
And ever since I was younger and could appreciate Jaws as a movie, I have wanted to get one of these coats and I've wanted to wear it. Now, here's the problem. They made that coat for the movie. So they found that coat, they found that coat at a thrift store in Martha's Vineyard. And so it's not like they had it manufactured. There are some attempts by some companies to make something similar, but it's not even remotely close. There's like a baby blue one you can get, not even close. And so then I thought, someone's made an Etsy shop to make these things.
Yeah.
I have not found an Etsy shop with someone who's making the coat from Jaws. And maybe it's because that movie is 48 years old and people are like, no one's cosplaying Jaws right now. And,
oh my God, a Jaws cosplay would be pretty fucking
right?
epic.
I think so. Because as you know, my dream is to watch Jaws while I'm floating in a lake.
They do
right?
that.
And so this year I'm accomplishing something close. My sister's throwing a pool party on the 4th of July, and I'm going to bring my projector and we're all going to be in the pool floating while watching Jaws, which I think is going to be great.
That's great.
Leading up to that, I need to have Mayor Vaughn's coat.
Yeah.
So I found a coat. And it is very close. The lapels aren't quite as big, but they're close. It's from the Shaquille O'Neal collection at JCPenney's Big and Tall. So thank you, Shaq. It's the right color because it's a gray, but it's a very pale gray.
Okay.
And really, the darker grays are popular right now. So even finding that.
Does it have the same kind of step and repeat spacing and size of the anchor?
So here's the problem. There's no anchors on it. But after talking about this with previous guest Natalie Deutsch-LaPlante, she goes, you know what? My mom just got a Cricut. Are you familiar with a Cricut? It's about the size of a printer.
Yes.
And
I think Christina has one.
Okay, yeah. A lot of creators have them because it cuts vinyl and it cuts other things.
Yep.
And so you can cut the vinyl iron-ons.
Okay.
And so what I'll do is I'll bring the coat to Connie and be like, will you recreate this coat? And I'll find as many shots as I can so that she can here's the front, here's the back, here's how the sleeves, everything like that. And then I've also started doing the math. So I found out the height of the actor and I said, based on his height, these anchors are this size. Right. So even if the lapels aren't as big, we'll have to shrink the anchors down a little bit so that they match.
Right.
I want the same number of anchors. I want it gray and I want to walk in there and I want to storm into everywhere on the 4th of July and be like, open the beaches. Open the beaches.
You got to find the right tie that goes with it.
That's
the right
okay.
Undershirt too.
That's going to be the hardest part because on my subreddit, I've seen a couple people who've tried to recreate the suit coat and they've done an all right job.
Okay.
No one's done a banger job yet. That's where I come in, right? And they said the problem that they're finding is getting this tie. And so someone said that they have a book Making of Jaws from 1976. And so they talk about the tie in it briefly. And they said the tie was something that somebody had that they had been given as a gift for the 4th of July from their company. And so some company that said, listen, we're all going to work on the 4th of July, but here's a gift for you that shows your pride in America. And so that'll be another thing that's going to be difficult. And I don't know if maybe what I do is I could probably find a scan of it and maybe print that off and then iron that onto something,
maybe.
Take like a white tie or a cream colored tie and kind of put that on myself. It's honestly the cosplay I've been dreaming of, which is amazing because it has nothing to do with John Candy.
Yeah, that's usually your go-to. After you do Jaws in a pool, you should watch Ghostbusters in a haunted house.
Oh, I like that idea. I'm also getting ready. I spent the weekend watching all of the Indiana Jones movies, except for Raiders of the Lost Ark, because they're showing it on the big screen tonight.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to go watch that. And this is the order that I watched them in. Temple of Doom, Crystal Skull, Last Crusade, and then tonight I'll watch Raiders. And let me tell you why.
I have a theory.
Okay, tell me what your theory
The
is.
theory is like when I was a kid and my mom was like, well, listen, you have to eat the carrot on your plate too, not just the hamburger. I would put the carrot between two pieces of hamburger to help. Basically, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
It absolutely does. And my favorite Indiana Jones movie is Last Crusade. I think that movie is friggin' perfect. It's a balance of humor. The action scenes are great. The chemistry between Sean Connery and Harrison Ford is amazing. The Marcus Brody character, you get Sala back. I mean, it's all of this stuff that you just loved. And I found out why Crystal Skull doesn't work. And it's only because I watched them in that order. Temple of Doom takes it too far. And it makes you invest too much in Indiana Jones at not being an archaeologist as part of it, right? So he's constantly having to save, the woman. And he's got this kid that he's sort of taking care of. And they're giving him too many other things other than like just finding the artifact, right? And then but the things that work. So I think kids, their favorite is Temple of Doom because it's the easiest to understand who the bad guys are, who the good guys are. The monkey skull brains thing is like, oh, gross, neat. And in Last Crusade, they concentrate on him being an archaeologist, but also trying to live up to that like impossible image his dad has. And they have that great conversation on the blimp where they said, he's like, we can talk. I was a great father. I gave you your privacy. I let you experience things on your own. I was a wonderful father. And he's like, Dad, you were not a wonderful father. Like, I left home when I was 15. He goes, that was your choice. And so that worked so well. And it was so good that when they made Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they're like, we're going to just reverse engineer this. Indy is now the dad, and now he's got a son who's different than what he is. And so it's the same dynamic that he and Sean Connery shared. And we're going to bring back Marion Ravenwood that everyone loves so much, but instead of her being a total badass, we'll have her be worthless. I'm sure Karen Allen will be excited about that. And we're done with the Nazis. We're done. What if we make it the Ruskies? We'll bring in the Soviets, but we won't have any fun with the Soviets, and we'll just make them blindly following this, but for no particular reason of, it doesn't seem like they want to spread communism everywhere. It seems like all they want to do is have knowledge. Yeah. Oh, and who'd be great? Kate Blanchett. Think we could get Kate Blanchett? I don't know. Maybe we won't. For the good parts of Crystal Skull, and there's a couple. Like, I like the chase that's around the university that they have there. I like him in the,
in the refrigerator. You love that.
No,
part.
I hate that. But the beginning starts off in kind of a neat way, right? Because we see Indy in peril right at the beginning where he's been kidnapped. And then they say like, we're going to kill you and your friend if you don't tell us how to find this box. And his way of like, it's highly magnetized. So he's throwing the bullets and watching them. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it's just bad. And here's the problem. Okay, here's the real problem. How does Raiders of the Lost Ark start? Do you remember?
Yeah, when he's trying to get the
golden idol,
the golden
right?
idol,
and we see Indy, and he's having this mini mission, and it's exciting. How does Last Crusade start?
I actually don't remember.
It's Indy as like a teenager played by River Phoenix, and he sees the other essentially the grave robbers who are finding this thing, and then he steals it from them because it belongs in a museum. But he has a mini adventure that sets up what's going next, right? In this, they're like, you're kidnapped. We're going to go into the whole thing. And then you're going to go on a jet car. And that'll be it.
That sounds like a mini adventure.
It's not. Because they get immediately into the storyline rather than reintroduce who he is. Yeah. Because Indy's older at this point, right? So why not show us, this thing of like, why not show us a failed, like I would have opened Crystal Skull like this. Indy is trying to get something and he fails at it, right? So his body's not up to the task and he's just getting older and you can't do that. I think that's what they're going to do with Dial of Destiny. But Crystal Skull is such a piece of garbage, and I hate it so much. I remember being angry when I left the theater, and I just sent you a text the other day that we don't want to talk about on this, but I really feel like there might be some realism in what we're talking about.
I have more to add to that text once we're off the air. No, I remember hating that movie from the very first scene.
Yeah, from when it becomes a prairie dog comes out of the Paramount logo.
I mean, that didn't help, but really what it was Spielberg pulls a George Lucas, where you don't need a character to verbalize the thing that you've already told us visually in so many different ways. And one of the classics with Lucas is from Attack of the Clones, when she gets hit in the neck with a poison dart, and then Obi-Wan like pulls it and goes, oh, poison dart. Like, we don't need you to say poison dart, right? We get that. You don't even need to say poison. We saw it happen. We understand. Okay. And so the opening of Crystal Skull, they do all these things to tell you that these are Russians, right? And they do a good job of it. It's like, okay, it's the 1950s. You're seeing this army car drive. You look at them. These are two clearly stock actors for bad guy Russians, right? And we know this is Cold War era from all the advertising, and clearly that's what they're leading up to. And then these soldiers kill some American soldiers who are like, these are definitely Russians now. And then they all start getting out of their cars and they're like speaking in Russian, right? And then they're like, oh, okay, these are definitely Russians. We get it. They're totally Russians. And then they have the whole bit where they pull Indy out of the car and his hat hits the ground. And it, you see the hat get picked up, goes up to his head, and then
it's in silhouette too.
And then he goes, Russians. And I was like, fuck this movie. God damn it. We didn't need that part. And the rest of the movie is that. It's tell, not show. Mm-hmm. And
big ants.
And there are scenes where you go, what was the conversation you guys had in this? When Shia LaBeouf is Tarzaning through the forest, or even when early on Indy is getting interrogated, I don't know, by the CIA or something.
Yeah.
And it's shot in the most flat, uninteresting style. It looks like Spielberg just wasn't there that day. And they just said, just throw up some fucking cameras, get this scene real quick, please. And yeah, like, it's not enough to bring back old characters. Like she has a life to her in the first, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is mine. Raiders of the Lost Ark is really the only indie movie that
when she's really drinking those guys like in the middle of nowhere, out like drinking them under the table.
Well, she is a force to be reckoned with, and it's not patronizing and it's not shoved down your throat. She is a phenomenal character. But you return to the well over and over again, and I can't imagine there being an Indy 6, but who knows?
There will not be. In fact, I tell you, this is what
they used to say, there would not be a 4.
Yeah.
Now there's a 5.
I think that this is the future of that franchise, is video games. Mm-hmm. I would and there have been a couple good Indiana Jones games, and I think that is the future of this character, right?
Like, what is this, Pitfall?
Bingo. And because Uncharted, that video game, is pretty much in Indiana Jones video game, right. And those are awesome. I have a great time watching and playing those. The movie, no, not at all. But that's where it is. Tucker, we're running out of time in today's episode, which is fun. I know I've said that before, which is BS, because it's a podcast. We can do as much as we want. If we want to make a 4-hour-long episode, but
you've got house repair to do. I've got house repair to do.
I've told you about how much I love the TP-Link power line adapter, right?
The fuck did you just say?
Okay, so what it is you hook this adapter up and you plug it into a regular outlet, and then it runs to your modem or router, and it turns the electrical grid in your house into a new like Ethernet. So you plug another one in somewhere where you want a direct line. So I've got one of these little adapters plugged in anywhere that I've got one of my televisions, so that my smart TV, and I just bought one that essentially allows me to like boost and extend my Wi-Fi network, because I'm just not ready to go mesh yet. And I know that that's the big thing, is a mesh network is what everyone loves so much when it comes to home Wi-Fi. But so today I'm dealing with hooking up this adapter that allows me to have a Wi-Fi extender be one of the things that I plug in. And I will say this, the TP-Link thing, I mean, it's plug and play for the most part. but getting that initial thing put together, their instructions are so bad. And I don't know where the company's from, but there's a note on the like quick setup guide, and it goes, "We're using an image from the European model, so it may vary in the look." And I thought, what? It would take 2 seconds for your artist to like be like, all right, man, there's a plug. And you could have the US model on the ones that you're shipping out to the United States. And it's of course not interchangeable at all, because we're talking about their version of like an AC plug and our version of an AC plug.
Yep.
But I right before I left, I think I got everything good to go, and I'm very excited.
Nice.
Because so like Jill, where our router is on the opposite side of the house of where Jill's office is. That's one of the reasons I went with these initially, is that she needs a really like firm connection to be able to, you know, essentially she's screen sharing with her office computer. So that's why we got it. But the problem is that since we've had the big problem in our living room, I've had to move that stuff downstairs, and it doesn't quite reach when you need the Wi-Fi signal, like for our Nest cams.
Right.
And so this will, I think, extend it and allow us to have really nice Wi-Fi out in our patio, which means that now my meter, the thing I put in when I'm cooking turkey or steak and everything like that, will now be able to bounce to my phone wherever I'm at, which I'm very excited about.
Well, I'm running an Ethernet cable today too, but I'm just drilling a hole in a wall.
Are you? Just boom, boom.
Just right through and be like, I hope no electricity's here.
So we'll find out in the next episode of JJ Meets World if Tucker ends up electrocuting himself.
Check the news.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information.
I found an old VHS that was just a video of a guy explaining why Sherry broke his heart. And I'd like to find Sherry and break her heart.